Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. You've got your host here, Howard Greenberg. I am solo. Thoughts and prayers out to Big Beat and the folks down in Florida. He is in the Tampa area, so he will be riding this one out here. We'll be riding this one out without him today. Big news, obviously, CPI data just came out. After that came out at 8:30, we've seen a quick drop here in the markets. So it doesn't like that CPI data. We'll go over those numbers. We just had CPI and our first look at initial jobless rates. Both of them not running the way you would want. So we can see markets all sort of moving down here since that news. Did notice, though, Bitcoin made a move down quickly on that news. It is bouncing up, so maybe a little precursor that we could see it move up. So let's get into that news there and talk about what we are seeing. Let's start with jobs. We know that, that was sort of, inflation, while it's still, key metric, top metric in mind for the Federal Reserve. We have also, seen them talk about the move to where they are a little bit more concerned, quite honestly, or their main focus was, weakening in the job market, what's going on there. So initial jobless claims jumped about $33,000 here to $33,000, 33,000 people to 258,000 in the week ending October 5th. This is the highest level of initial claims since early August of 2023. Economists had expected new claims would only rise to about 230,000, so this is a little bit more. Some of the gains could be from the effects of Hurricane Helene, as we know, with sharp gains in unemployment in Florida and North Carolina to keep in mind. And we know that economists expect the full impact of that storm to be spread out over 7 weeks. Like we said, both SPY and QQQ right now look set to open at a negative. So we have that. Second big economic spot on the day was the CPI, which is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So as we can see here, it rose a touch faster than expected in September, potentially adding, a little threat that the Federal Reserve planned to cut U.S. interest rates twice more this year. The closely followed inflation gauge that emits food and energy rose 0.3% for the second month in a row. Analysts had forecast a smaller 0.2 reading in the core component. The increase in the core rate in the past year, meanwhile, edged up to 3.3% from 3.2. In the prior month, it was the first increase in a year and a half, so first time we've seen inflation go up. We'll talk more when Steve gets back. Do we think the Fed moves on this type of news? Let me take a quick look at what FedWatch is doing here. Pull that up over the side screen. And we are seeing a big move here. Well, not really, because yesterday was even higher. So bigger expectation today, or a little bit more, that there could not be the half basis point or 50 basis point move, that we would only see the 25 basis points. So we'll see what happens here. What does PPI look like tomorrow? Market doesn't look set to react very favorably to this so far, although we are seeing a little bit of a bottom here starting to form on SPY and QQQ. So hopefully, as this news gets digested a little bit more, we can do that. Of course, the other big story today is the aftermath of the hurricane. It has crossed most of Florida here at this point. We know it swept in on the west coast, a little bit south of where Steve is in Siesta Keys, around 8:30 last night. The good news was Tampa was spared the direct hit, because some fears there were just, with the little islands and the way that it's set up, St. Pete and Clearwater in that area, that there could be a problem. So hitting a little lower, hopefully there, they got people out. Almost 3 million people in Florida are without power so far, according to poweroutage.us. Insurance was a sector that was hit hard earlier this week with the anticipation of that. We looked at these on this sheet, I believe. Oh, I alphabetized it. Let me pull it up here. It's just going to be easier. There we go. And we do see a little bit of a move up here now as the hurricane is hit in Renaissance, Chubb Limited, Allstate. So the insurance sector is seeing a little bit of a positive move here. Arch Capital and Berkshire Hathaway all in the green this morning. So we do see insurances moving the right way, reinsurers to move in the right way. So keep that in mind. We always like to take a look here at our oil. It is up about 1.5 WTI, trying to retake that 75 handle here. And we know the U.S. benchmark was up about 1.2%. Brent crude, the international standard, rose about 1.2, now up about 1.68 here. So, those are the things we'll keep our eye on. A few things, China, we've talked a lot here about the China play as they gave stimulus. What we're seeing here today is a little mixed bag. Baba is up 1.54. Baidu is up, but I did notice that NEO was down, and a couple of others were down. So what I like to see there is that stocks are actually not just all moving in one direction based on a news event. So maybe we are starting to see the China play settle down here, and you can start to pick winners and losers based upon that. So, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Gold is moved back up to 26.23. It's been sort of stuck at that 26.25 level, not really able to get back up towards the all-time highs at 26.85 that we had seen. Bitcoin struggling to regain 61 here. I have drawn a few things up in the charts that I'm looking at here when it comes to Bitcoin. Number one, you can see that since about the end of July, we're seeing sort of a symmetrical, the white lines there, a symmetrical triangle form. And what that means is that we're seeing volatility sort of decrease, and what we normally see is now when we get a breakout of that white triangle, it usually is fairly explosive to one side or the other, especially in Bitcoin, because what's happening in all this time is open interest is getting added to, which is the perpetual futures, and that the things that whenever you hear those liquidations, that's where those happen. So what happens is when we break above one of these sides, it will cause that dam to break a lot and then move us in one way or the other explosive. My other point that I have here is that gold sort of upper trend line. You can see we're having trouble staying above that trend line. We've broken above it, 1, 2, briefly 3, 4, 5 different times, but we haven't been able to spend any decent amount of time, and to me a decent amount of time would be like a week, consolidating at that level yet. So we are in the middle of what I would say is no man's land on Bitcoin here. You are dead in the center of the linear regression, and you're dead center in that range that we've seen him playing so well between 53K and 60K or so. We're not, what I would like to see is either a move up back towards 65, 66, where I might scalp down here looking for a return mean reversion, or come down and test the bottom range here, 58 of this triangle, or even coming back down to the 53. I'd be a big buyer at that point, looking for the upward move from there. So those are things I'm looking at. 62,045, as you can see on my hourly chart here, is the first sort of area that I am looking at as resistance when it moves up. So, it actually will start at 61,696. So that's the area I'm looking at so far today on Bitcoin. Okay, let's get back into some of the news of the day. I will say Treasury yields are starting to look a little bit favorable right now. They're moving back up a little bit above 4. And what does that mean? A lot of times yields go up, prices go down. We see that, inverse reaction with the stock market as it becomes easier for people to, just take that guaranteed money out of Treasury yields. So we will definitely keep an eye on that. Hey, again, staying sort of where my world is there in crypto a lot. We see so much talk about anti-money laundering and the issues in the crypto market, right? But I'm going to bring up a headline here, and you can see that TD Bank, which is was TD America, they're facing $3 billion in penalties and growth restrictions in the U.S. as a result to the fact that they failed to build proper anti-money laundering systems. And as I read the article, it talked about a Chinese... Where'd they find it? Sorry, I just want to make sure I give you the right info here. Yeah, here it is. Federal authorities opened an investigation into TD's internal controls after agents discovered a Chinese criminal operation had laundered millions of dollars in fentanyl sales through the TD branches in New York and New Jersey and bribed bank employees, the Journal reported. So my question would be, Elizabeth Warren, I thought this was all done in crypto. What do you mean? This is getting done in U.S. dollars through one of the largest banks? I mean, I know she's not a fan of banks in any way, shape, or form, but if there's one thing she hates more, it is crypto. And I guess I just bring this up. I'm not taking like a victory lap. I'm not happy to see this. But what I do want to point out is that some of the things that have been attributed and caused a lot of consternation with regulators and that you see Main Street media rail about has been, anti-money laundering issues or people, fraud. We see day after day, these same things in in the other parts of the financial services area. So I just want to bring that up. I'll get off my soapbox and get back into the news here with us. But that is, that's what we're seeing. So far. I'm seeing some results after CPI came out. We see that the Federal Reserve decision on rates will hinge on data on the labor market, is the view of Whitney Watson, the global co-head and CEO of fixed income and liquidity solutions at Goldman Sachs. So seeing some folks at Goldman Sachs that say, hey, now labor is what matters. This inflation, isn't as important. So we're going to see both sides of this play out there. Traders in the Fed funds, as we talked about, began pricing in a higher probability of a quarter-point interest rate in November after taking a look at the inflation data this morning. Fed fund futures showed an 85.7% chance that the Fed will lower its benchmark rate by a quarter point at the policy meeting next month, according to the Fed Watch tool shortly after the CPI was released. At the same time, traders priced in the lower probability the Fed will maintain its policy rate at the current target of 14.3. So again, most people here saying not going to be a pause, and we're still at 25. But again, now we are seeing all of the sort of talking heads come in now, and now I'm seeing that Reagan Capital out of Dallas, Skylar Weinard, saying the latest in jobs data could prompt the Federal Reserve to pause any rate cuts. So we'll see. Yesterday the minutes did come out, as I mentioned. I was taking a look at those. I did have some notes for everybody there. And it will be funny because I have a quote here that I saw in the notes that said, almost all participants agreed that the upside risks to inflation had diminished, and most remarked that downside risks to employment had increased. So it will be interesting because now you are seeing inflation creep up a little bit and sort of catch everybody by a little bit of surprise. And we see QQQ still not recovering, down about a half a point here. Bitcoin not able to break 61. Gold still there, so nothing moving. Nothing's really moving at this point except for treasuries. We have seen, what is TLT doing here, which is the 20. Even that's moving down, although it's a longer dated treasury bond ETF. It's about a 20-year there, but we do see that. I will say that some officials, as we know, especially Michelle Bowman, who actually dissented in the vote, but there were other officials in reading the message, the meeting notes, that said that they would have preferred to only have done a quarter note last time, not the half point. Several participants noted that a 0.25 percentage point reduction would be in line with gradual path of policy normalization that would allow policymakers time to assess the degree of policy restrictiveness as the economy evolves. That's a good point. That's why I had been calling for 25 basis points. Steve had been calling for 25 basis points. Is when we moved up on the other side of this and raised rates with all-time high, and not all-time high inflation, but with huge spurge and inflation, we didn't move up in half point measurements. We moved up in 25 basis points or 25 bips, not 50. Why did we go down in 50? So, we'll see. A little bit of a knee-jerk reaction here. We'll see how that plays out as we're looking. I was looking earlier here. Let's take a look, because this is all moved now tremendously, and everything I put on my chart probably not as relevant as it was 20 minutes ago. But let's take a look here at the pre-market movers. I did put some lines in some spots that I was looking at here for things, and some of them already moving. I had been looking at this morning and pointing out that we had a nice support level at about 109. We have since blown up Blooms here. Blooms did move up on news. That started this off. Blooms is a company that deals with voice for commercials and for television shows, animation, and Blooms announced that they had been selected by an animated film company that's very popular out of Japan to do their next movie. It moved up on that, and Blooms is one of these ones that can definitely pump. So, well, now it changed, but I love what I'm seeing here because it broke through the previous pre-market high we had seen here. You can see challenged it, able to barely break above it, fell back down to support. Now it's broken right through it. So what I start to look at here is, where is VWAP? And if I pull out the Super Guppy just so I can see a little bit easier here, I see VWAP down here about 126. So I'd like to see, on a pullback to 132 here. If we get another bounce up, I would consider playing it. So that's my call on this one. If it breaks below it, VWAP would be the next spot we're looking at here. So I'll put these in as to what I would be looking at. First line of support should be in this 132 range. That was our key resistance. We love if we can see resistance turn into support. So now the question is, do we see that? If we see a nice, real solid bounce right from that level, that's when I'd be looking at it. It might run away from us here, so we'll keep an eye on it, but Bloom is definitely one that's in play. CNEY was another one I was watching here. I'll come back up to the XHG because that just popped up. I wasn't in one that I looked at earlier. I looked at this here earlier again, CNEY, and another one similar to what we just saw out of Bloom, right? We've got a decent little range of support here that it's currently at. So as this one would definitely be one to keep an eye on. If it holds when we get into the 930, here what we're looking at is, do we get a bounce from support at 930. Sometimes we see that pump out of retail right at 930, so I'd be watching that. What I'd be watching for here, if we break through VWAP, that's what I'd be looking at. So we do bounce up from support at 930. I'll be looking to see, do we break VWAP, which is currently at 0.77. So that's what we're looking at. If it breaks that VWAP there, we get happy. That's what we're looking for. Okay, let's take a look at some others here. TVGN was another early morning pumper here. A bio, I fell out of range. So that one's one that's now gone. What you can see I had set up is, again, just like the setup we were just looking at, it had a sort of support range in between here. I looked at that 0.34 area down to 0.3 or so as a support range. Again, we could have seen a pump up. You could still see it, but you're more looking at now, I'd be looking more at a downside play here with a first target at 0.297. So here I'd be looking at a downward play, not the upward play, and I'd be targeting that level and then that level. So again, that's what you could be looking at here. Those are the levels to keep an eye on for that, but that's what I see here on that. What were some of the other ones I had here? Let me go to my chart here. I had them all just down this way. We looked at blooms. We just looked at CNEY. Tempest was one I was looking at. Tempest, I was using a little bit of a Fibonacci because you can see it didn't work. And that's why we always say, right, that when it comes to charting, it doesn't always work the way you think it's gonna. Or, you know, you can have the best setup and it still doesn't work that way. And what I'm going to point out is, you know, you had this move up here, this, you know, this morning starting at 4 o'clock, went from 134 all the way up to 203. So I set a fib level as I saw this retracement, and it had looked at that 50% retracement mark was really going to hold up, and if it did, we might have seen, you can see it almost tried to make it here, just couldn't get it, couldn't get the volume it needed, and you can see part of the problem here is a loss of volume, right? If we look at the bottom, we can see we have a loss of volume. That loss of volume is causing this to go down here. But if we had seen a volume spike on this mark right here, along with the move back up, we would have been playing it at that point to the upside. So it didn't make its move. You know, that's why we look at these. JTAI was another one here. This one made a double move, you can see. It moved up yesterday, or last week. Wait, no, this morning. It moved up at 4 a.m., and then at 8:30, at 7:30, it got another pump up. This one's retracing. Here now the question is, fell through the VWAP. Can it break back through that? Do we see a zone? What I'd like to see here is something playing more along the lines of a nice consolidation in this zone. You see a consolidation, then you can look for it to try to break back up through VWAP. So a little bit tougher on this one to what you'd be looking at. TOAP, this one, I'm not seeing enough volume there now that I look at it. TOAP, what's that volume at? No, I don't know how that got there. We're going to take that out. We only look for volume with over 1 million shares traded in the pre-market hours. So the reason we point that out is because if you do jump in there without that volume, you're just asking for trouble. You got to see volume here for these. These are momentum trades we're looking at. This one was right at the edge of that volume, top wealth group. We're going to pull that off too. Faraday, this one always has volumes. That Faraday is one we're looking at here that's kind of interesting. This one's a perennial pumper, I would call it. And if you take a look here, you'll see what I'm talking about. We'll pull up the hourly chart here. Let me take my two drawings off of that. But as you can see, this one's made explosive moves up in this area and this area. Even these were nice moves percentage-wise. That area, it made one. So this is a perennial one that these Wall Street Bets folks love to play around with. So it has a lot of legs. You can see it's coming right down to support here at that 271 level on the hourly chart. So I kind of like that. And again, what we see here is we got a nice little, I'll point out a couple of things here. You got a bull flag, right? We're holding up in that zone. We're right about where we're looking at it. If we could see a nice move up here. And this one it all depends. So here would be the thing. If you are really going to take a risk, you'd probably look if it could get back above that 280 right here that it hit a little bit earlier, right? We saw it made its move up. Now it's retracing. Do we get, and I would only chase that with a higher low. You break below that low right there, no way. But you stay above that, we make a move back to the upside here. You could look at it here, or for me, I'd be looking for confirmation. So if we break through that 280, then we get through VWAP, which is right now at 282. So again, I'm going to put that on the screen for what I'm talking about here. If we consolidate here, get a bounce through previous high, then through confirmation at VWAP, which right now is 280. You could see a nice move up. And we'd look for move. First would be 288. Actually, I'd bring that up. 290 and then 295. So, pretty good move up, that you could see there. Although, again, this one's now, as we're talking, moving down to the downside. So it broke down. Now forget it. That just ended that one. Don't even have to save it. It broke below what we're looking at here. And now you're looking more for it to come back towards this area here of consolidation. So I'd be looking for it now to make that move all the way back. I would take that off my show. We're about 1 minute from the open here. 1 minute from the open. So we'll keep our eye on these. Another one that I was watching here, and this was another one, like I said, I was more looking if it broke, and it did. So if it broke through that support zone, I was looking for this for a play. I would have shorted down to this 298, short again down to that 2620. So those are some of the things you're looking at. Let's keep our eye on Blooms. I think this is the one here that's going to make its move here today, and you can see I wanted to see it pull back towards it has the VWAP, and then it made its explosive move through what was resistance. That resistance definitely just turned into support that we love to see right here in the zone, right? So we have that. Now it's making its move. Let's see if we can get a, entry levels I'd be looking at here would be something more towards another bounce off of this support zone here, or if you're looking for a continuation breakout, you want to see it break above that $1.42 level. So those are the areas you're looking at here. But it's got a lot of volatility to open here. Let's take a look at the tick as we're at open. Down about 600 here. So, wow, we gapped way down. You can see here, tick had been sitting up down about 100, 200. We had two gaps down here at 830. You can see it gapped down from tick being pretty much neutral most of the morning pre-market. So most of pre-market, we had seen about even buy and sells there. There were people picking winners and losers based upon individual stocks. We saw the first drop down on the tick as we got the news at 8:30. Eventually, that started to work its way back out, and then we gapped all the way down here to almost 887, 900. It broke 900 to the downside, but now it's trying to work its way up, but still only minus 364. We see SPY down about 0.3% here. We see QQQ down about a half a point here. I did say yesterday that I felt that we were going to have an up day with QQQ trailing a little bit, SPY and the Dow Jones. I was 2 out of 3 ain't bad. QQQ had about as good a day as the others yesterday, and an up day. Today does look like a start is negative here, but I think we grind our way back up throughout most of the rest of the day here as this data, gets digested. Again, we talk about with Agnieszka Wood, take a deep breath. You want to have a response to what's happening in front of us. You don't want to have a reaction. In other words, you don't want to react, you want to respond. And we are seeing QQQ get a nice little surge there. Let's take a look and see what's going up and down here. Amazon, we're in the middle of Amazon day. We know it had that nice move up yesterday. Let me get out of the 3-minute chart here. Get into the daily charts. And you can see it had the nice move up. Yesterday, gapped up again today. So Amazon seeing some love. ASST trying to get moving in the upward direction here. AZO AutoZone getting a little bit of love. BABA up 1.24. Let's get our eyes on Apple here. Apple down about 0.66 here. So after having a nice up day yesterday, trying to bounce up here on the 3-minute chart. Let's get down to NVIDIA. We know that has such a weighting on the market right now. See, down about a half a point. Palantir is down about 1/8 of a point. That's made those explosive runs. A healthy reset here would not be a bad thing. You can see it's taken a few healthy resets. Qualcomm down 2, so we got some chips getting hit hard here. Qualcomm down 2%. SMCI almost down 3% here. Tesla down half a point. Another one that had started off with a strong day yesterday and then had that turnaround on it. You can see yesterday around 11 a.m. it took a big drop down. We'll say Tesla on the hourly chart starting to look a little interesting here. We got Robo-Taxi day today. This is a pretty good support zone here. You can see back in this time frame here, here to a lesser extent. It's been a good support zone so far. It's an interesting one. Tesla, I don't like to fade the Musk, as I say. This could be an area of an interesting trade to the upside here on Tesla. Could be an interesting spot. I'd more be looking today to see if we get a little bit of recovery first. Want to get some legs under us. Tick still highly negative here. Still down 447 or so. So we're definitely not seeing that move in the right direction yet. Seeing a tweet here from Bloomberg. China wants to rival Elon Musk in space, but it has a lot of work to do to catch up. Seeing Lee Brainard, the Fed Reserve's vice president, saying we keep making progress. Let's see, there's a little bit more news on that. No. Huh. Well, Steve was here for this one. The person he loves to rail against, as we know, Lena Khan, who is running our FTC. It says Lena Khan sees a lot more work to do at the FTC as big name Democratic donors call for her ouster. Yeah, I think that there's not much of a chance that she makes it through this at all. See in there. Let's see, do we got any? JG, seeing a couple of halts here we can take a look at. JG getting halted here. JG, Aurora Mobile. That got stopped to the upside. What's going on with the early morning pumpers we were talking about here? So Bloom's just continuing to move up here. CNEY, you can see that's out of play. TPST, out of play. I said that. You could look for that for a full retrace. It's almost there already. So JTAI, this one gets interesting here. Bounced off, just broke back through VWAP here. Retesting VWAP. If we get another bounce, I'd like to see, I want to see a wick finish above the VWAP. And then how it reacts here. But this one could be in play. Because if you're taking it here on a break of, I would do it at that 0.148. You got about a 25% option move to the upside here if this gets a run. So this should be one. This is one to keep an eye on. Currently trying to break through VWAP. It did it briefly. What is that level I wanted to set here? Whoops. So again, another one we're looking at here. Keep an eye on that. If it can regain the VWAP here, which it's trying to do right now, and then I'd wait for some confirmation here with a break over a 0.1483. You've got some decent move. You'd be looking at a partial exit there at about 12-15%, full exit there in that 25%, or at least another half at that point if it goes. It's trying right now. Here you go. You're seeing it live. If this gets over here, is it going to break it? 0.1477. Got rejected its first attempt here. Now let's see it bounce off VWAP and get that run through. We'd love to see that. That would absolutely be the confirmation we're looking for here. So loving the look there, although it's now dropping down, stuck at VWAP. Can it break above this now? Nah, it's losing its momentum. And we've got some good volume. You can see volume pick back up. That's what we're looking for, right? We want to see that volume pick back up. can see volume dropping off, but we had the start here. Okay, TWG, what's going on there? Nothing. I'm going to pull that out. That was the low volume. Didn't make any sense. Here we go. We talked about this right here. Now it's trying to make its move. Okay, it broke VWAP, broke its resistance. Here it goes. I'd get in Faraday here, would be moving to the upside. Look at this. Here we go. Look at Faraday future. You've got, if it breaks 283 here, we're looking for a move all the way to 290. There it goes. Just hit 283. It's trying. It's got volume, right? What do we look for here? We look for that increase in volume, moving in the right direction. That's what we want to see. It's tried it twice. It can't quite break through it yet, but it is definitely trying. JTAI also, it's losing its momentum here, so it hasn't done it. It hasn't been able to break through. You can see it tried. Got rejected firmly at that 1482 area we talked about. So that's what we look for. There goes Faraday. Look at that. As we moved away, it went right through that and broke right up to the next resistance level we pointed out at 290. There it goes through everything. Faraday's the runner, baby. Faraday making its move. You see that volume spike down the bottom. Now it's broken through. It's trying to break through the top of this flag. If it breaks the top of this flag at 295, next spot to target there is 304. And then, quite honestly, it's green skies to a little bit. If it can get through, Faraday has the ability to do this. We pointed out this is one that has been a pumper on multiple occasions here. Multiple occasions. Let's see what it does. Let's keep an eye on the tick while we're here. Tick still negative here. Moving up a little bit in the right direction, but still negative here at 165. And we can see we're not getting recovery. We are getting a little bit of a consolidation here in the short-term chart on QQQ. Same thing on SPY. We're starting to see an area of interest right now in that 575.5 area. Tick trying to go positive here. So now we're seeing some buys step in. Tick just went positive. Let's see if we can get some momentum. Bitcoin struggling, can't get above 61 here. Same thing, WTI, Brent, not Brent, but oil from WTI unable to break above that 75 handle. What's going on with Tesla? We were looking at Tesla as a possible move here on a bounce move. Do we see it bouncing off that level? Take a look at this hourly chart. Can see it tested that support zone that we had down to that 237. It's trying to bounce up here. You see a bounce here. Tesla could be a play the rest of the day to the move to the upside, so we'll keep an eye on that. What else do we have moving in the upward direction here? Not seeing a ton else that's pumping yet. Let's get through all our checklists here. Seeing some negative. Delta had earnings this morning. Hasn't gone very well here. They did have a little bit of a miss. Missed their EPS by 1.16. Revenue by 0.35. They did talk about the issues that they had with CrowdStrike, and they did sort of put a money to that. So they revealed the dollar and cents impact of the CrowdStrike outage on Thursday and issued a soft fourth quarter outlook. Why we see it moving down. Delta had been moving up over the last few days. You can see starting here on Tuesday of this week, it had made a nice move up from about 46 to 52. But definitely taking a little bit of a hit here, giving back, and it looks like it's going to fill the gap here that it had again. Legacy Carrier said in an earnings report that the tech glitch, which crippled Microsoft computers worldwide and forced it to ground 7,000 flights over a 5-day period, cost it $380 million in revenue, or about 45 cents a share in its profits. So they're saying they would have come in at about 195 EPS. That would have had it moving in the right direction. They also forecast earnings of between $1.60 and $1.85 for the current quarter, warning that Americans are less likely to cut their travel spending in the run-up to the presidential election. So that midpoint falls below the 1.76 a share that we had seen analysts already prediction for the next quarter. So they are getting hit on that news. CEO Ed Bastian said in an earnings release that Delta is positioned to finish the year strong and on pace for one of the more profitable fourth quarters in its history. The weak guidance underlies the fact that Delta and its rivals are struggling to fill a glut of seats as the post-pandemic boom and flying fizzles out. You know, we saw everybody wanted to get out and about, and that has sort of walked, has definitely dropped down as we look at things now. Let's keep an eye on those pumpers we were watching here. What is going on with FFIE? We're not getting the push follow through. He made that one pump. We'd still be in it here. Trying to hold this support. It's got to hold. Got to get above that 282, 283 area again here. Did bounce off nicely the area we had pointed out at VWAP. So it is using VWAP so far as support. If it can continue to do that, and you can see, though, unfortunately, volume dropping away. So we need this to hold volume if it's going to make that move. That's what we're looking at there, and it's coming down. It's struggling here. It's trying to get a bounce off that VWAP, but it doesn't seem to be able to do it. Same thing, Bloom's losing some of its momentum here, so it's dropped back down to that level we were looking where it was consolidating at that 133 here. So again, we would need to see that bounce back up above VWAP. CNEY retraced all the way down. Same, Tempest is actually now going to go negative on the day, and we can see what happened with that volume. As that volume dropped off, so did the move. DJT up 11%. There's a runner for you. Look at that. DJT. Huge pumper. Tesla continuing to fall here. So now down. Now its next zone of support's not till 220. Excuse me, 235. 235. SMCI chips definitely getting hit hard here. Chinese name Bilibili down 5%. So we're losing momentum here across the board. Tick back down 300. You can see that QQQ just dropped. I didn't see any news come out just now. Bitcoin losing a little momentum here. Again, what I'd be looking at here is that 58.9, 59, 58.5 area. That's solid support. Apple down 1 here. Probably some Fed speakers out there doing their thing here is probably getting us a little bit of this drop down, if I had to guess. Not much I'm seeing green here. Amazon's the big winner so far. ASST. Biggest S&P gainers, MOS. CrowdStrike up 3% here. You can see the nice move up by Mosaic. That's on a downgrade by Mizuho Securities. They cut the price target to 28 from 31. Kept a neutral standing on there. Biggest losers today seem to be in the S&P 500, FSLR, which is First Solar, down about 6.39 here. It's on light volume. QQQ down 0.7% here. Lows of the day. We're seeing QQQ at lows. Tick still negative about 440 here. SPY almost at lows of the day. The Russell 2000 at lows of the day. The Russell 1000 at lows of the day. Dow Jones pretty much the only thing not at lows of the day. VIX, another thing definitely not at lows of the day, but only at the 2134. Hasn't been able to really hold above 22 here. Tried to get above it a couple of different times, but it's been unable to really stay above that here. Tick still negative at minus 209 here, minus 209. Faraday, definitely no volume, moving down right back into that consolidation area at the bottom of the flag. So we'll see what it does here as it does that. Bloom is holding at that 127 level. Again, if we could get a bounce off of that 127, see it break through that 132, you could look for another pump there. Qualcomm down 2.6 now. Ford, GM, Stellantis all down this morning. CVS on the way up here, so CVS getting a little bit of love here today, up 1.5%. AMC up 0.5 point. Conagra up about 1.3 here. They tend to benefit, you know, these food companies a little bit when it comes to the hurricanes, because people load up and then they reload, so tends to help them a little bit. Not seeing a whole bunch else. ZIM, which is shipping, up about 1.13 here. IWM getting hit here. Getting closer to Scott Bauer's wish list to get towards that 200 MA. Still got about $1 to go. We'll have to check in with him and see if he is making a move there yet. Costco, another one we'll keep our eyes on. Was up nicely here in pre-market, but again getting hit like everything else once the market opened. Costco be one I'd definitely be more interested in. If we could see it sort of at that 871 range here. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Comes back to that level, I'd love it. I'd even be happy for it somewhere in this level. 891, 871. DXY is rising now over 102, so the dollar is getting a little more value too. That tends to pull money out of what? Out of Bitcoin, out of gold, and out of the stock market. So we'll be on tomorrow with our man Steve Flanagan. We'll ask him a little bit more about that. I do want to point out I will be on with Jeremy Vreeland on the watch list today at 11:30, stepping in for Matthew Tuttle while he is traveling. So I will be on with Jeremy to do the watch list. Should be a lot of fun. Take one last look through those pumpers we were watching this morning, see if anything's showing any love. Blooms is moving back up a little bit here, so it's trying to get through VWAP. So Blooms is definitely one you want to keep on your radar all day here. It's still in play. You know, again, I'd be looking to see if it can break the 135, which is where VWAP is now, in that range right there. If it can break through that, you are looking at something that could definitely give you a nice run there. Faraday has dropped well below out of zone now. Same, all the others have sort of moved out of zone there. Okay, well, as we move into the end here, we do see tick finally getting up into the positive level here, and now up about 300. As I did say, I do think we grind our way up here today, and we will finish up with, I think, well, see, QQQ is going to be an interesting one with Robo Day, because Tesla could really take that down on its own later on. We've seen chips with some weakness, but what we've seen is people wanting to buy these dips. I do think this might be a buy the dip day, the buy the dip morning day, so to speak, where people kind of take a look at some of these ones that are down, that they are interested in, and say, you know what? I like NVIDIA at a 132, although they would have liked it better when it was at the 130 here a little bit earlier. You know, but that I like this pullback on some of these, and maybe there's an opportunity to get in and get a better entry. You know, Apple could be one that people are looking at. You see it rebounding again. So we're seeing, you know, the names that were moving yesterday are starting now after the sell-off, and, you know, people take profits. It happens. Starting to move back up, so... Even Bitcoin doing the same here, so that's what we're looking at. Gold still sort of stuck at that 26, 25 area, has been having trouble getting through that. Silver, same thing, 31 we know has been a little bit of a battle for it. WTI again, 75 has been the resistance spot. So we do see some of these at resistance spot. Amazon, big winner so far, up 1.5. So that's really helping the market here so far. Alibaba staying in e-commerce, up about 0.5 point here. So, you know, we are seeing. Let's take one last look. We hadn't looked at retail in general. Nordstrom's not doing so well, down about 2.77 here. But again, we're seeing winners and losers, because Kohl's up about 0.48. MSTR down about 2.5% here with Bitcoin down. That's one I think you could look for it to try to fill the gap down to that 176.97. If it did do that, I would be excited to see what its next move is from that point. CrowdStrike moving up nicely today. I do think that part of this is, you know, that now that the actual numbers coming out, and we know that, you know, Delta was suing or looking for monies, arbitration, to try to recover some monies that they feel CrowdStrike was responsible for in their loss. So we'll keep an eye there. Now seeing some notes here that say minutes show a cautious Fed, economists say, with little hurry to slash rates. Federal Reserve surprised economists with that 50 basis point move in the benchmark interest rate in mid-September, move that was seen by many to be a jump start to the easing cycles. But as people are, you know, getting their way through the Fed's September 17th and 18th deliberations, which were published Wednesday afternoon, they reveal a much more cautious central bank than people maybe thought, which is why we're seeing yields up, prices down on some of these. You know, so that's to keep it in mind. And as Oliver Allen, the senior U.S. economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics, said, the Fed is in little hurry to slash rates for now. He thinks the central bank will be acting with far more urgency to avert a significant slowdown at the end of the year. Ryan Sweet, who's the chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics, said the minutes raised the risk that there could be fewer rate cuts in 2025. Also, Oxford had penciled in 4 quarter-point cut rates next year. And they also projected another 50 basis points between the last 2 meetings of 2024. So we could see a change to that. Let's take one last look at the markets here before I take my break. Tick back to pretty much neutral here. SPY has regained a little bit here after getting down as low as 574.56. Not trading all the way up at highs of the day, but trending towards that side. Same with QQQ, which is actually closer and trying to get to highs of the day. Again, I do think that we see ourselves positive at the end of the day. Keep in mind, do not fade the Musk is one of my lines that I live by, my mantra. And with Robotaxi day to day, we'll see what happens. Thank you for joining in today on Quasar Markets Live morning report. I hope to have Big Beat back tomorrow. Hopefully the hurricane is not hurting his area too bad down there. And I do have, prayers and thoughts to everybody in the wake of the storm. Stay safe out there. And